Welcome to Draft Sickos on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel and podcast feed. This is the show where we discuss everybody from the biggest of names to the deepest of sleepers. I'm your host, Maxwell Baumbach, and I'm joined by the real star of the show, Stephen Gillespie. Stephen, how are you doing tonight?
Maxwell, brother, I'm doing great. It is another fun weekend over here in the Gillespie household. We are in the Navy, in the Navy right now. We're going through what's called Chief Season, where a bunch of people who were ranked E6 have advanced to E7, and it's a very special time of year because we have to train them up and know what it's like to be a chief in the Navy. We're the only military branch that does anything like this. It's a huge time. We broke a record at the command that I'm with the number of people who made it, and it just so happens that yours truly is like the liaison as to like run the season. So it's like very cool I get to do this, but it's like you're also trying to herd like 22 people and make sure they know where to be and when they be there. So it's a fun time, but things are going well, man. How are you?
Doing good. I experienced some reverse sexism today in my household.
No.
My daughter was playing with my wife upstairs, and just the way that like responsibilities break down in our household, I happen to do a lot of the cooking, and she said, "Boys are not allowed to play in here. Boys have to go be in the kitchen." And it's I'm just trying. I'm recovering from that. But no, all in all, it's been a good weekend. But
boys don't get to play; they belong in the kitchen.
Yeah. So we're on this podcast. I'm going to prove the boys can do stuff outside of the kitchen. We can watch sports. Boys can do all sorts of things. We don't.
You can cook on a podcast, Max.
Yeah. So that's what I've had going on. We do have some big programming news coming up, so stick with us. That will be at the end of the episode. So that's your impetus to stay tuned. You got to do it.
Hang in there.
You got to listen. That's called a tease in the biz. Yeah. So we have a lot going on. We have both published something in the last week. So in segments 2 and 3, we're going to talk about my No Stone Unturned column from last week, looking at some wings. We are leading off with a piece that you wrote, very, very, very insightful piece on NoCeilingsNBA.com about Blake Harper, who I think is one of the most interesting players to follow in college basketball this coming season. Tremendous insights from him, not only about like basketball, but his basketball journey and his life. Blake Harper is a 6'8", everything, like guard, forward, wing, like whatever. You could categorize him a lot of different ways based on either what you think he will be at the next level or what he did for his team at Howard as a freshman. He averaged 19.5 points per game, 7.2 rebounds, and 3.4 assists while shooting 44.7% from the field, 40.4% from three, and 82.5% at the line. And he lived at the free throw line. He had a free throw rate of 0.658, which means basically for every field goal he took, he got to the line a lot. That's a great explanation of that advanced metric. But it's free throw rate is basically what percentage, relative to your field goal attempts per game, how many free throws did he take? So he took 27.8 shots or 12.7 field goals per game, took 8.4 free throws per game. So this guy lives at the line, 6'8", can do a little bit of everything. I guess let's start big picture. What was it that made you want to write about Blake Harper, and then what was the process of interviewing him like, and what do people need to know about his journey coming into this season? Because I think in his case in particular, it's a more pertinent backstory than a guy who's always been a 4-star recruit or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot going on, as you could imagine, with any prospect kind of going from high school into college. The more that I do this, the more that I learn about how crazy paths truly are. A lot of it is stroke of luck. A lot of it is connection based. A lot of it is right place at right time. And Blake's is kind of a mix of all of that, where he came into high school very undersized, point guard size, Maxwell, and he was kind of pudgy. Those are his words. He said that he was kind of chunky as just getting into basketball. He went through his whole high school career kind of being undersized, being a little overweight, and he didn't even get to like the 6'8" size until he went to Howard, So even whenever he was recruited, he was like somewhere in the 6'5" to 6'6" neighborhood his senior year, and he played at Gonzaga High, which based out of the DC area, that's roundabouts where he's from. He played on a team with a lot of, highly touted recruits, and in order for him to play, which his dad was his coach at the time as well, he had to kind of make his money playing the four in high school, and that's really whenever he started making a name for himself. And he's one of these guys, Maxwell, where basketball his whole life. Unfortunately, his mother passed away when he was younger, so it's always just been him and his dad, getting support from his grandmother as well. But with his dad being his dad and his coach, he really just poured himself into the game. Big body transformation guy, lost a lot of weight, continued to grow. Really didn't get his footing in high school, Maxwell, until he was a senior. And then he has to go from finally being comfortable playing high school basketball to learning how to play college ball. And there's a story in there about how he, immediately had to hit the ground running for Howard.
Yep.
Being the size that he is, a prospect that has the dimensions of an NBA player, has the skill set of an NBA player, but he had to really whip himself literally into shape and conditioning, running these drills at his at Howard called Talladegas, and because their practice court was essentially a basketball court tagged along with the volleyball court, and they had to run these up and down, and he had to pass a whole bunch of conditioning tests for him to travel overseas and play with the team, because it's like, we're not just going to pay for a plane ticket for you to travel the world with us and not play. So that was a big motivator for him. And over the course of time, Maxwell, what really drew me to him was just watching his film before I knew any of those things. Just watching his film and just thinking, man, this guy is so smart. He's kind of plug and play. He, like you mentioned at the top, he could play so many different positions. And that's what really drew me to him, running these analytical queries that you and I like to run, and just watching him play. You would have never have guessed the background that he had coming up. He just looks so natural, but I love just kind of getting to know him and his camp and all the stuff that he just kind of had to overcome just to get to where he was, man.
Yeah, it's such an interesting amalgamation of the traits that you want to see in a late bloomer, where it's, yes, he popped late, but the feel is still really high. And like, yes, he popped late, but it's because he had a late growth spurt. Yes, he popped late, but he also went through body transformation. It's like anything, yeah. It's basically every late bloomer story in one. And I think with like the settling in to his role as a high school senior thing, I think that's particularly interesting in today's climate, where like these high school kids tend to commit super early because they have to, because the portal comes calling. And like, I think teams get to December and are like, well, who can we get out of the portal next year to fix problem A on our team? And not like, what high school kids have been graduating in a few months. Like,
exactly.
It puts a real squeeze on kids coming out of high school, and you get kids like Blake Harper ending up at a program like Howard, which is a school that's done a really good job. Like, we interviewed Steve Settle on this podcast. Like, there's been talent that's come through Howard. But in general, there's a wide gap between what you see in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference and the Big 12. Like, there just is. And I think it's really going to be interesting to see how he scales up. Because yeah, it's a fascinating next chapter. I also thought like everything about his situation was really interesting. There was a really good, I believe CBS did the article where they talked to his dad previously, and he talked about like what a wide net they cast in general in terms of the number of agents they met with. I think he met with like 29 agents. I think he was saying too, is like, we might go back to Howard. Like, we're not like, we're not leaving because a bunch of people want us to leave. Like, we're making a real basketball decision here. Like,
yeah, there were 4 schools that he was considering, obviously Creighton, which is where he transferred to now. He mentioned Ohio State, which he fits the profile of so many players that have come through Ohio State. LSU was another one. And he, again, like you mentioned, he really considered going back to Howard because he's a DC kid is what he says, about himself. He's only ever been there. Obviously with, again, the things that had happened with his personal life, the loss of his mother, his family is all DC. It's all he's ever known. But, one thing that I found interesting is like his dad, you mentioned like it was a very thorough process, but even in the midst of all of that, Maxwell, how many times we hear about the dad, quote unquote, meddling in the decision where his kid goes, right? All the time, right? But his dad, smart of him to just keep all the options available, but talking to Blake, his dad only ever told him, make the best decision for you, so that is involved to an extent, as I imagine I would be if my son was going through this process as well. Like, I'm not just going to let any and everybody come up to him and make all the promises in the world with me having life experience and him not being in that position before. Like, just looking out for your kid, but ultimately, him going to Nebraska from DC, a big culture shock for him, but he's very excited about being there, man, because he's telling me that, like, Dix is going to be a problem for Creighton this year too.
Yeah,
and like they just locked themselves into a gym, dude, and like all they have been doing is working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that is the other thing I liked about him is I like the schools that they narrowed it down to, which were all schools that have a good basketball program, have a good coach, and are also schools that all, like, I don't want to say you're going to walk into a role. Like, these are all competitive basketball programs.
Right.
But you will be a priority there. I think it's very important for guys to evaluate the schools that are offering them and being like, hey, do they want me here, or do they just need a wing and they're like throwing the bag at 8 guys and whichever one says yes first is in? Like, yeah. I appreciated that it seemed from the outside, at least, like they were very thoughtful about their process from start to finish. And they ended up in a program where they've shown like they will play through bigger guys at times. They will play through whoever the best playmaker on the floor is. And that doesn't necessarily matter, like, if you are guard size or not. I think one of the really interesting players that kind of came to mind throughout this was Jemiah Neal, who was like a Portsmouth invite, who is like 6'6" and ran the show offensively for Creighton a lot over the years because he was a really good ball handler. He's a really savvy player. And like, there's a lot of overlap there with Blake Harper, where it's like, you've seen proof of concept with this. So this is a school that will prioritize the skill set that you currently have. They will give you a runway to fill out that skill set. And it's not a team being like, we heard this guy scored a lot of points per game, and then we're going to bring him in and be really mad if he doesn't fit into whatever box we want him to. Like, I think it was a really good choice on that front too.
I wholeheartedly agree, man. I mean, again, it's a thin line that you have to kind of thread whenever you are trying to balance the portal. You and I both have talked to enough players to where we can see when a decision is made, like, okay, we feel like this is a good or a bad decision because insert reason here. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned with Blake, I think it's an interesting time, and it's not in my notes or in the piece because, there's things that you just kind of have to leave on the threshing floor sometime. But I asked him, like, you guys are going into a unique transition period holistically for Creighton because Kalkbrenner had been the identity of that team for half a decade, like literally. And now this team is kind of transitioning a little bit in terms of pace and spacing and all these other things. I mean, the players that they have in, you and I have talked about this too, with guys like Owen Freeman coming into this team as well. There's just like there's just like such a different feel to this Creighton team that I'm just, whether or not I got to talk to Blake Harper at all, like I was genuinely excited to watch this Creighton team just because of the change of identity that this team was going to undergo. But they just so happened to grab one of the most interesting kind of transfer up prospects that I know a lot of people have liked. And, Rucker was a big Blake Harper guy through the year. He actually just got to see him during the Formula Zero camp that Damian Lillard puts on out in Arizona. So there's a lot of people that are really high on and interested in Blake Harper. And I just think that the decision to Creighton was just like perfect execution of how to continue to make that happen.
Yeah, I think he, for me, is like, if we're just talking purely in terms of like him as an NBA prospect, the like best and most intriguing long-term rising sophomore that I don't have a firm opinion about, which I know is like a very bizarre thing to say. And I watched a lot of him. Like, I watched a lot of him throughout the year. I watched more of him coming to this episode. And I'm like, there's certain things I'm leery of where like he was a really low stock player. And he was also a guy that didn't shoot a lot of threes. And I think where I get concerned is I look at like my misses on up transfers. And I feel like those are two really common threads, like the Jacob Cruz, Tucker Anderson, like Darren Buchanan overlaps of like low volume from three, doesn't produce a lot of events on defense are there. But it's like it's also a watch the tape and then look at the other numbers phenomenon of like how many 6'8" guys carry this large of a usage and creation burden draw this many fouls, have the ability to manipulate ball screens, have the ability to get to their spots on the floor, have this really obvious level of feel, perform on the defensive glass. And he's also one of those guys where, like, if you just watch the isolation tape on defense, he stays in front really well. Yes. And I always have a hard time with, like, the valuing on ball versus off ball defense thing, if we can get into this for a second. Because, like, sure. I think Jalen Wallace was the guy I undervalued coming into the draft. And I think part of it was I was viewing him from more of an offensively tilted lens because the steal and block numbers are really low, and I didn't like how passive he was as an off-ball defender, and I worried, like, early in the year, I thought he was behind the play more, but by the end of the year, I thought it was fine. But if you watched him on ball, he always just contained the ball really well. Like, he had a really good lateral first step that he would attack with instead of, like, giving guys that space to drive him backwards. Harper has some work to do in terms of his on ball, where he does let guys, he gives guys too much space at the point of attack. Sometimes he makes it a little too easy to drive on him. But once they get inside, he, like, walls up really well. He can use his chest well. He can, like, play without putting his hands on people. And it's like, okay, well, if he ultimately just, like, stops guys from scoring on him enough, and, like, the offensive role was so heavy, it's like, do I need to be as concerned about the defensive playmaking shortcoming stuff as much? Like, I don't really know. And I think we'll get a better idea for it at Creighton. But I just have a really hard time moving on from a guy who's, like, 6'8" and really knows how to play basketball. Like, that's just what I ultimately come back to.
100%.
Like, size and feel are too valuable. And it's also like, well, he didn't shoot a lot of threes. And I know that we're not, like, the biggest, like, free throw percentage as touch indicators, but he still made 40% of his threes, even if the volume was lower. And 82.5% from the line is getting to a point of, like, we kind of just have to accept that you're probably going to shoot. Like, it becomes one of those sigmas of, like, if you're going to make that many free throws, then, like, how many guys make that high of a percentage of free throws on that volume and don't become shooters? Like, it reaches that end of the scale of, like, could it be meaningless? Maybe, but at this point, it probably isn't.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting kind of dilemma, like, that you just painted, Maxwell, and I totally understand it, but the thing for me is contextualizing, and sometimes, like, I'll be honest, I've been in trouble getting to know too much about a player, and I can sometimes use that as an excuse almost, you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, totally.
I talked to this player, they told me this, so I'm going to be a little bit more understanding and sympathetic and try to rationalize what I'm seeing on the film. But I'll tell you, man, like, the fact that he really didn't pop until he was a senior in high school, the fact that he really didn't get into, like, legit basketball shape until his freshman season of college basketball, and now he's transferring up from the MEAC to Creighton. But he's telling me in this interview that, like, anyone who watched him at the beginning of last year and the beginning of this year, they're going to see a completely different player. Like, he's so continuing this body transformation, you know? So it's like, oh man, like, I have a lot of reasons to be optimistic, both what I've seen on the film, like you just laid out, Maxwell, but also just talking to him and getting to know him. You can't really lie about any of that stuff, too, because in about a couple of months, like,
he just shows up and he's, like, massively overweight.
You're gonna see it. Yeah. Oh, wool over my eye, right?
Well, it's also the thing, too, of, like, it's easier to, it's easy to believe when we've seen it. Like, you can go on Synergy and watch him in high school and see that the body looks different. Like, it's a clear trajectory at this point. It's not a guy where we've never seen it suddenly saying you're going to see something brand new like that. I'm always leery of that. This is not that. This is not that.
I'm going to give him reason to continue to be a man of his word. And just kind of trust in that, or for the time being, until I get proven otherwise. But you're right, man. Like, whenever I watch the film and whenever I talk to him and I go back to my notes throughout the year, I go back and look and, like, really, that's his block percentage right there? Or those are his blocks per game right there? I have a hard time separating the numbers in the film, like you were just saying, but I'm going to lean into the fact that this is continued to be an upward trajectory guy based on even hearing outside of him and his camp, you know, just some of the things that we've been privy to. Like, he's a legit workhorse guy, and he's going to be this type of a player to where I think he's going to be upward trajectory throughout, whether it's a huge, you know, steep incline this year, or if it may be 2 years before we see ultimately what we're wanting to see from him. I'm just going to be optimistic to whatever, I believe is coming with him.
Yep. Yeah. That's kind of where I ultimately settle. Is like, does he need to be a little bit more decisive at the catch? Yes. Does the defense need to get better? Yes. But like, again, not a lot of 6'8" freshmen who rebound, play make, put the ball on the floor, draw fouls. Yeah. Like it's just that level of efficiency on that volume load, which he 1000% had to take on. Like this was not watch a Howard game. Like again, like you don't want to slander these guys. They're all much better at basketball than I could have ever dreamed of being. But he had to take on the role that he did. He had to take on a 27.6 usage rate as a freshman out of necessity. And he was still extremely efficient. Still had a 58.5 shooting percentage. Yeah.
He's so smart. Like listening to him talk about like how he gets to the line and what he's looking for and stuff like that, saying if you look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I'm like, whoa, bud, like you're watching Shai film and that's where you're getting like your inspiration from. Like I kind of
most 6'8" guys do. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So it's just like hearing him, how he thinks the game and just like kind of connecting the dots on the film. I'm like, bro, like, yeah, I'm there. I'm in. I can't wait to watch Creighton. They're going to be such a fun team this year, dude.
Yeah, and the Josh Dix thing I think is like real. Like I think that's a guy that if you watched Iowa last year, that kid can hoop. And I'm really excited to see him in a different environment. Not that anything was like wrong with his role at Creighton per se, but I always think it's fun when we just get to see a guy in a different context, in a context where we've seen like NBA guards come out of, between Ryan Nembhard, who played Summer League this last year, Trey Alexander. Like they let guards do stuff there. So it should be very fun.
Having Blake just like unprompted just tell me that Dix is going to be a problem, I'm like, okay. Like I didn't ask, but I'll keep that in my back pocket. Thank you.
So I think that does it for Blake Harper. We'll put a pin in that one, but definitely a player to watch this coming year and possibly the next several years. If it doesn't all come together this year, but could it all come together this year? Very, 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 very possible. So one of the best sleepers out there. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk about some of the players from my No Stone Unturned Wing Part 1 article for 2025. Stick with us. We'll be right back. All right. So leading off, the very first wing group is a player that I loved going to this exercise. I still love him. I got a little trepidation after the FIBA U20s.
You sound like you're scared of him now, Maxwell, just talking to you behind the scenes about
him. I was really disappointed. I sent the TNA Wrestling Ken Anderson Aces and Eights August 1 warning reveal meme of him just perplexed, scratching his head after watching the U20 film on our guy here. But I think ultimately I'm still in. I'm still very much in. We're talking Alvaro Folgueiras, who was at Robert Morris last season. He will now be at Iowa. Last year, he absolutely stuffed the stat sheet, 14.1 points per game, 9.1 rebounds per game, 3.2 assists to 2.3 turnovers, averaged 1.2 blocks and 1.4 steals. He shot 54.8% from the field, 41.3% from deep, and 78.4% at the free throw line. My fascination with Folgueiras started just with the fact that it's tough to find guys who check so many boxes at this size. Scores inside out. Like I said, over 40% from three on over 6 attempts per 100 possessions. Deadly when unguarded at like just under 49% on his unguarded catch and shoot threes. And has like some stuff to him as a driver. Occasional really advanced reads downhill, some creative deliveries. Can post up if he's got a size mismatch. 22.5 assist rate because he can see the floor on the go. He can make those quick connective passes from the perimeter. He also crashes the offensive glass. Like at 6'9", I think the offensive skill set is kind of where we'll start. I just think guys with this offensive skill package are extremely playable. I think offensively, in terms of what the game is, I'm not saying he will be either of these guys, but I'm saying like in terms of what he brings to the table, it's sort of in that like Jake LaRavia / Tristan da Silva cloth of like, it's just extremely playable. It's just there's size, there's good decision-making, there's a jump shot, There's if I'm run off the line, I can make a quick decision. Like I think this is the game that pairs down really well. It's 6'9", and I'm super, super intrigued with it.
Yeah, I see a little Santi Aldama in the game as well. I see a little bit of that. Just watching him, dude, finding him at Robert Morris, watching him, and Todd Brogna on the same team as well, another sleeper favorite of mine. I like me some Brogna, but I love Folgueiras, dude. Even just doing the March Madness breakdown whenever he and Robert Morris were playing Alabama, I was like, he's going to be solid. The offense wasn't as strong as what we wanted just because Alabama is so talented. They could just focus in on him, but he still contributed even though the shot wasn't falling. Yes, still contributed a lot even though the shot wasn't falling. But I mean, 6'9" with good shooting touch. He competes on the glass. Solid shooting motion, has a little bit of a dip on it, but I think it's okay. He chases his own misses and his teammates' misses very well. He can put a little bit of pressure on the basket because he can drive. Doesn't have a lot of bend or wiggle and does need to fill out a little bit more, but I do think that there is enough there to be a little bit dangerous. Right now, I think he's a fantastic spot-up threat who, even though he is a little bit thin, not afraid of contact, I think he gets to his shot very quickly, even off of the bounce, moves very good away from the ball, some length to help finish when he is at the rim, even though he is a little bit weaker. Finishing will improve as that strength gets up, but I do think it's fine for now because he has some good mid-post stuff to his game as well. Plays within the flow of the offense on the post and in the mid-post. He can get to some nice, footwork and up-fake game, things like that. He can get bumped off his spots a little bit. As a playmaker, though, I do think that he makes nice interior reads when he is doing his work in the paint. Has some nice, what I would say, like intermediate to advanced reads, can find his teammates on the move, very sound as a stationary passer. I do think that he struggles a little bit to create off of the bounce, but I don't think he's going to be asked to do that even this year at Iowa. Defensively is where I run into a little bit more concerns because of the strength deficit that I think that he's at. He does have good reach, nice extension, very long. I think that he's a fine player to contest, jump shots. I think that he'll be a good kind of complementary defender because he hustles, he gets after loose balls. He just needs to work on his isolation defense. I don't think that he's particularly quick laterally. And maybe he can just improve his footwork a little bit in that aspect, Maxwell, because I do think a lot of his plays come from just hustle. And that's okay because sometimes dudes who are so potent offensively, they can make a role for themselves on defense because they just never stop working. And I don't think that his defense is necessarily like atrocious. I just don't look at him as like a plus defender right now because the tools are fine and he gets by on just like effort right now. He's not like athletically freakish.
That's kind of where I settle too. I think the defense is one of those things where I go back to Tristan Silva again, where it's like he's going to win by being long and having a good level of feel. And I think there are some like technical things that he could definitely tighten up. But right now he's one of those guys who's like fluid, but not quick. I think his like hand reactivity is really good. And I think he almost leans too much into that as a defender at times. But I think the off ball stuff is good. Like he's always in the right spots. He's really good in pick and rolls when his man is the roller. Like, I feel like I saw him get a ton of steals in that particular setting. Like, in all the games I watched, like, there were very few instances, whether his man was rolling or popping, where I felt like, oh, he sold out his positioning in this particular way. Like, it just always seemed like he was right where he needed to be. Yes. Yeah. Always all over the entry pass when his guy did roll. When it was a pop, I thought he did a good job of taking away, like, easy passing angles, where if it was you're going to get it over him, you're going to have to find a more creative way to do it. So I thought that was like a nice skill to have in his back pocket. But yeah, like really good steal and block rates, really good defensive rebounding percentage, all stuff I'm like interested to see how it scales. I know that stuff tends to carry well, but again, we come back to some of the physical stuff, which I'll kind of, spill my candy in the lobby on what I worry about with him. It is the run, jump, athleticism, and physicality, like you talked about. Like he's not super fast to the rim. He's not a guy who holds his line particularly well because he is a little bit upright as a driver with the ball in his hand. And then that leads to a drive that's slower because you're not as explosive in your first step when you're upright. It leads to more below the rim finishes because you're not exploding up off of the floor. You're higher up. And then with the shot, like he kind of shoots it off the top of his head a little bit. And like, to me, it's like, I wonder if the sample is bigger if he settles back closer to like 37 than like 41 or whatever. Like, I think realistically we'll see a percentage closer to that if the volume is similar or higher this year. And then defensively, it's the foot speed. It's the upright thing there. And I talked about over-reliance on his hands. He's one of those guys who doesn't use a reactive first step on defense, where like guys will initiate a move and he just kind of puts his hands on them instead of sliding his feet. And like when he's already in his slide, he's very fluid, but it's getting to the slide. Like if a guy gives him time to set up and get into his stance, he can hold his own a little bit. But if it's, I've caught it, I'm immediately coming off a ball screen. Odds are he's upright. He doesn't have bend in his knees, and he's immediately putting his hands on them to try and stay connected around it instead of using that lead leg to go over the ball screen and stay in front of the ball. Like he just doesn't have that sort of twitcher technique at this point. So I think those are the improvement areas. But and again, he was really bad in the FIBA play, and it was a lot of the physical stuff I thought was the issue, which is scary because he's going into the Big Ten this year. But ultimately, I just come back to 6'9", shooting, passing feel, rebounding, defensive understanding, selflessness. Like I had him very high on our initial like way too early board that we did as a group. I'll still probably have him top 30, which is maybe still a reach, but I ultimately just see a guy that like, I know I'm fairly confident that he'll be a guy that you can just like have on an NBA court. And I think if I'm feeling that way about him coming into his junior season and he's going to a system where he's going to have a really great coach and it's going to give him a chance to really accentuate his gifts, that gives me reason to be more optimistic. So I just really like how he's positioned currently. So maybe that's a bit aggressive. I can understand if you're like, well, if you just think he's like a guy that can eat innings, like why do you have him in the first round? It's like, I just don't think that highly of that many guys at this stage in the process. And if that's where you're at after a breakout sophomore year, like I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
I think you mentioned two key points, Maxwell, that I'm so glad that you did. One, I don't think having him top 30 is ridiculous right now because at a certain point with the incoming class and even at a certain point with the returners, it's just so kind of flat. And I don't necessarily mean that in like a negative way. It's just like, well, really anybody could stand out at this point. So like, why not go with a guy that you were high on to close out the year and kind of have them prove you wrong, so to speak. And then with the coaching, I think he positioned himself so well because if you go to Synergy and you look at how he performed as like the pick and roll man, and then you go on Synergy and look at how Bennett Sturts performed as a pick and roll ball handler, you're just like, your wildest imaginations just like take over, or at least mine do with my brain. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what if they do X, Y, and Z with these two guys? Like what if there's some like kind of crazy Spain pick and roll action to where like, Alvaro screens the screener, flips back up, and he's getting like a whip pass over from Bennett Sturts, or even vice versa. I think that those two playing off of each other are just going to be so fantastic because they're both very intelligent. And I think with the coaching aspect, I wouldn't say that it's crazy to think that with the coaching, I'm no shade at Robert Morris at all.
Sure.
But like, the coaching upgrade that he's going to get from going to Iowa, I think that he could probably learn a thing or two about defensive positioning, footwork, timing, and the like, with who he's going to be playing for at Iowa now. So I'm very high on that pairing. I'm very high on him just in general. He's going to be in my first round too.
Cool.
Coming into the year. I love him.
It makes me feel better about myself. Yeah. I feel like I talked to a few people who had him there, and then like everyone kind of like backed off after the FIBA thing. And I'm like, I don't think we should be that over.
Come on.
Like I think we just saw a really great sample of Robert Morris. So I'm still
He's
into
not going
him.
To be playing FIBA baskall in the NBA. So
that's right.
We could take that with a little bit of grain of salt. Like definitely a data point, but like
throw
the baby out with the bathwater.
Exactly where I sit with it. Up next, we've got Eian Elmer at Miami of Ohio. He is a 6'6", 215-pound wing. This past year, he scored 11 points per game, 4.9 rebounds, 1.2 assists to 1 turnover. 1.5 steals per game, and 0.7 blocks. He was 47.2% from the field, 40% from three on high volume, and then weirdly 68.5% from the free throw line on low volume. Very, very interesting. Again, just plug and play 3-and-D wing sort of prospect. We are now at, so Eian, I'm really intrigued with him, and this is another guy where I think I'm buying the trajectory quite a bit. So Elmer was a guy that I looked at last year for No Stone, and I just didn't think he was that good. To be blunt, like I watched him, and I was like, this guy's tall and he can shoot, but like, and the defensive stuff was like good, but it was like the rest of this offensive game is a mess. Like it was a disaster a year ago, and now he's like a quite good just offensive player in general. So back-to-back years over 40% from three. This past year he took over 9.1 per game. And there's like some movement chops in there. Like generally it's either spot up or like minor relocation where it's like I'm flattening out to the corner for three or I'm lifting to the slot. Like it's a lot of that as opposed to like pure standstill. But even with it being less of a movement shot diet, like I think it's important to remember like Jalen Wells didn't really do a lot of movement shooting at Washington State either.
Yep.
But similar to Wells, he's also hit some really, really deep ones. Like so that range is clearly there. It's a good release point. His shot prep footwork is good. Has the knees bent off the catch, repeatable mechanics. I think the release point's good. Just a very reliable floor spacer. Where I came out higher on Elmer, not only than a year ago, but I think relative to people that have at least have him on their radar a little bit, is I really am starting to buy that he can do some stuff with the ball in his hands.
Yes. Yes.
Which I like coming into this, I think even before my final film dive, I was like, well, he can't really do anything with the ball in his hands, but whatever. And then like, as I went into the tape, I was like, oh, like I underrated him here. Like he's a good snap decision maker, which is like, I think a nice like requisite. Again, a positive assist to turnover ratio. The assist rate was overall still pretty low. But like he'll connect the dots. He's not going to like dribble the air out of the ball for no reason. It's fine. I do think he has some like sauce. So he took this, how he uses the sauce needs to get better, but the recipe for the sauce,
he's just slinging that sauce.
It's everywhere. It's not a bad sauce recipe as it stands. So the big issue, the big issue is he does not get to the rim very much at all. And when he does get to the rim, he's very contact averse. It's like the opposite of Blake Harper, where it's like there is very little determination to get there. And then once he's there, Moses Moody was like one of the players I used as like a shades of comp for him. And Moody was just like this in college, where Moody would like get, a foot inside the paint and he's already like finding ways to lean away from defenders. And Moody still drew a ton of fouls in college, but it was like all off of weird, like tricky mid-range jump shot stuff. Like I still in my notes call it moodying, when guys will like flail out a leg or like change their release to move it downward more to tangle someone up to draw a foul. Like he was really good at that. He drew fouls that way, but when he got to the rim, it was always kind of ugly. And that's how it looks for Elmer right now. But he was 26 for 52 on pull-up twos. Like has some real rhythm and rock, will manipulate a ball screen a little bit. And it's like, okay, like if you can do that and you can make the basic decisions, my hope is like, can we just channel you using that to get downhill more now that you're up to 215 pounds? Like he's put on like 25 pounds over the last 3 years. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping that that's the direction it goes. But if there's like a big offensive flaw, it's that he doesn't get to the rim and he doesn't finish.
I'm going to sound really unprofessional right now, Maxwell, if you're okay with that. Is he still at Miami, Ohio?
He is. He is. So that was one of the quotes I found.
I thought that he was moving on, but okay.
Yeah, no, he was just straight up like, I love it here, I'm not leaving. Like in the
Wolf of Wall Street, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. There was like a Cincinnati.com article where that I quote in the article where he basically said something to the effect of like, like I can make more money, but like I know I'm gonna play here. I like the coaches and I'm not going. So
okay.
Yeah.
We like that.
I do too. I kind of like the loyalty. It's Miami of Ohio, so I'm sure he's not getting paid like nothing. Like there are schools that like straight up don't have NIL budgets. Miami of Ohio is not one of them.
Correct.
But like I don't know. I thought that was interesting. What do you make of the overall offensive skill package?
He's
and
funky.
Where do you sit with the finishing? Like, do you think that's doable, or are you just kind of like it's not going to be there?
we got to see the finishing. Like, that's the only thing, because I think that he's got good pull-up game. I think he's a solid athlete. I wouldn't, again, not a plus guy, but I think that he's not as much as a deficit as what I remembered from last year, like going through and like refamiliarizing myself. Like, some of his movement stuff, man, is just like, oh wow, like you got some real fluidity, you got some off-ball wiggle, if that makes sense. Like, he is just like very sound at like getting to the spot that he wants to get to. Solid shooting motion, nice high release point. And I thought too, like, he did better shooting off of the bounce than I remembered as well. Like, even like going from that 3-point line to the mid-range game, really liked it. You know, you talked about how repeatable his motion was. He's just one of the notes that I have is he's just reliable. Like, you can just depend on him when you're kicking the ball out that he's going to knock down the shot. And like, it's almost sort of like Lou Dort, where some of those shots have like some real arch to them a little bit of a moon ball at times too. I really liked the passing a lot more once I like went back and watched it again, like during my preseason like regathering for some of these guys. I really thought that he had some good connective reads, really swings the ball, like has some real zip on it. I like him better as like a stationary passer, as like a creator off of the bounce, but even some of his stuff off of the bounce was a lot better than I had remembered. And even in my notes, you were like, he's got the sauce, but he just is, you know, we're slinging it everywhere. Like in my notes,
yeah,
he just needs to tighten the handle a little bit more.
Yeah, that too.
So I like the offense, Maxwell. Defensively, it's not bad, but it's not great, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like, there's some stuff there.
Yes, I think he is the most, and like, I don't mean this in a negative way. He has steal and block rates, both freshman and sophomore year, over 3. Steal and block rates both seasons. For a guy with the steal and block rates, one of the more underwhelming defenders that you will see.
Yeah.
But he's good. Like, he's good defender.
Aggressively solid.
Yes. So he's very good at just like timing stuff, getting to passing. I did not anticipate myself being more into his offense and his defense coming in.
Yeah.
I think the off-ball stuff is just like, he's in tune, he's long, he knows where to go, he hustles, he gets where he needs to go pretty quickly. I think like the most interesting thing about his defense, more like above everything, is how fluid he is as a mover.
Yes.
Where just everything feels easy and seamless. Like, it's never like obvious that he changes directions, if that makes sense. Like, there are some guys like Alex Caravan, I think is probably the current college player, where it's the most rigid in terms of like,
rigid.
I was going this way, I must stop, and now I'm going the other way. Where with Elmer, it's always very just easy and seamless. And I think that's true off the ball, when it's like, I have to go X out over there now, and I wasn't anticipating having to do that. And at the point of attack, when it's like, there was a play where I watched where it was like early offense, someone tried to set a screen on him, he like got around it, and then he just like transitioned so easily as the player like hit like a euro from like a slide to a jump into a block. And it was like, that looked so easy for you. Where like usually you see these steal and block rates, and there's like an overwhelming athleticism. Like, you expect to see like Atari Eason type of mover. And Elmer is decisively not that, which I do think when we're talking NBA projection, that does lower the ceiling a little bit. Like, we're talking about a guy. Yes. Yeah. Like, he's not going to be a guy that's like contending for an all defense spot, like, despite the steal and block rates. Like, he will not be that. But I think he could be a really solid NBA defender, because he knows where to be. His timing's really good, and he just does a great job of like staying in front of his man. That like, it's not going to blow the doors off you, despite what the stats say. But it's still like, oh yeah, that's like something he could do at an NBA level.
Yeah, he just doesn't get killed ever. You know?
Yeah,
what I mean? Like, he's just like, he's a dependable team defender, which there's a lot to be said about that. And like, dude's going to be 21. Like, if everything goes right, goes in for the draft or whatever, like, he'll be 21. So even though he's a junior, he's not like a dinosaur out there. You know what I mean? So like, defensively, I was just like, he's active in passing lanes. He's good length to be scalable on defense. I just wrote that he's solid, and he's pretty good at sticking to his line too, which I thought that he was not going to be that way given his frame, but he is just like, he is the offensive, very like, wiry. Yes, exactly. Like, he's less contact averse on defense than he is on offense, you know? Agreed. So which was very enlightening. So we'll see what he looks like this year. I'm hoping that there's a little bit more like willingness to mix it up in the paint a little bit more. Maybe even see the the rebounding stuff get there a little bit higher. I think that would bode well for him as well. Less than 5 rebounds, in a smaller conference, would be. I would just like to see that uptick be a little bit more aggressive on the glass. But again, good frame, good shooter. I think he's a better passer than what the numbers would indicate. There's a lot of stuff there. I just want to see it kind of polish up a little bit this year.
Yeah. I think he's a guy that I just really like the skill set. I think if it's more of a bland 3-and-D, I think it's decisively less interesting. Like if he looks really similar again, it's like I just don't know how many teams are going to be excited about that. But I think again, he's like a guy that would still get looks here and there. It's a little Spencer Jones at that point where it's like I always love Spencer Jones and I think Spencer Jones should be on a real contract right now. But the league is just Spencer Jones is a guy that gets a 2-way contract. I'm like, are we sure?
He's more physical guy than Elmer too, though.
Yes, right? Yeah. He was 235 coming out.
Yeah, he's
massive dude. And he went to Stanford, so he was a genius as well.
Yes.
But I'm saying in general, I think that is a player type I really value because I see this as what other kind of guy? If you're going to play guys that you're worried about, this is the type of guy I would like to have on the floor. I think the fear is that it could be closer to that. I think the reason for optimism is that guys like Jalen Wells, Aaron Nesmith, Moses Moody, were all guys that really didn't get to the rim or finish well at all in college. And in Nesmith's case, also wasn't, he was a pretty poor playmaker coming to the league. So if you're less optimistic about the feel, that's a guy that I would point to. But I do think there is a much better chance he becomes a dribble, pass, shoot wing. I think that is actually on the table for him. It's a real outcome. And if that happens, then we're off to the races. We're going to get in one more guy before the break, a guy who is way more dribble, pass, shoot. And that's Elijah Mahi out of Santa Clara. 11.1 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists to 1.6 turnovers, 0.6 steals, 0.3 blocks per game, 47.8% from the field, 43.4% from deep, and 67.9% at the line. Boy, oh boy, is it not normal to see guys this big that move this way with the ball in their hands. It is very, very interesting. So Mahi is listed at, I want to say 6'7" and 220 or maybe even
that's what I have.
And it's a legit 220.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's bigger this year.
I agree. I think you could tell me he's 230 and I would believe it. Originally from Canada, plays at Potter's House Christian in Jacksonville, under the radar, goes to a JUCO, dominates. And then it's sort of the odd JUCO thing of you already got your interest. So sophomore year, you're just going to kind of scale it back a little bit. They just didn't give him as much run because he had his bread set to be buttered. Went to Santa Clara, will stay at Santa Clara, which I think is a phenomenal decision. I think it's obviously a program that we know turns out a lot of NBA talent. I also think Santa Clara was weirdly a too many cooks situation last year.
Yep.
And I felt best when Mahi was the one doing the cooking of the guys that were there. So I like that. Just gets into the paint all the time. Frighteningly powerful and smooth, which again, not a lot of guys have that. Has the stuff where he bullies, but I think what's so intriguing from an NBA standpoint is how often he just wins with skill and craft. Could 1000% just be a post player and the WCC with his build and get by that way. But it's a lot of stampede dribbles, stutter rips, slippery crossovers, and euros to dice through the lane. And he's always low to the ground. His handle's really tight. There's speed changes. He is a walking paint touch, regardless of how it's set up, whether it's I've caught the ball and I've got a straight line to the rim, or it's there's 8 seconds left on the shot clock and Elijah, we need you to do something. He just gets where he wants on the court.
Then let me just ask you this now, Maxwell.
Yeah.
Why is he not a clear-cut NBA player right now coming into the year where we were talking about we're not overly impressed with the depth of the incoming freshmen at the top, it's oh my gosh, but once you get to a certain point it kind of gets scary. And then with the returners, I think that I have him on my returners board, like just like deleting names that are no longer available to like play this year. Very high on my list. So like,
I think that's totally reasonable.
Why would he not be like a clear cut like
second round, at least?
Early
I think that's totally plausible. When I rework my board, I think there's a real chance he's there, and I think there will be NBA teams that have him there.
I think so too.
I think like I just he was one of the names that like when people asked for the No Stone list, that was like a consistent like, oh hell yeah, Elijah Mahi. Like he was like one of the like. It seems like he was one of the names that would recurringly come up as a, oh, good shout. Like on that guy. Like I also agree. I would say Mike, I'm really concerned about the defense with him.
Okay.
I think he's clunky laterally. Part of that's like posture and stance stuff, which I don't really sweat too much. Like I think guys just tend to fix that when they get to the league. And again, the frame is awesome, which is important. I think he's just very casual on that side of the ball. And I think because the role was what it was, where it was like he's coming off the bench a lot, they have a lot of other guys initiating the offense also. I should have seen more. And like I see a 1.5 steal and block rate for a guy in a very good mid-major league, but a mid-major league with the tools that he had. And it's like, why? What's going on there? Like I feel like he very much underachieved on that side of the ball. And I think the other thing is like, I do think there needs to be some process rewiring where we talk all the time about how like generally the guys you want are the guys that can do a lot and scale it back. And I think that's what we're dealing with Mahi. But I do think there's a lot of like frustrating stop and survey where it's like he catches the ball and he's open from three and he doesn't take it. And then he dribbles the ball, the defense recovers. And then he ends up getting a difficult look at the rim, and he was like sub 50% at the rim. And like, he's just a guy that like makes life harder on himself than he needs to at times. And that's where I found myself frustrated with him. And I worry that like, maybe I'm over indexing too much on that instead of a guy who is like 89th percentile on pick and roll possessions, including passes with a tank body who like, and this is what I think my biggest gripe with the shooting thing is like there's times where he catches it and he doesn't look at the rim. I totally buy the shot. I know the free throw percentage wasn't great or whatever, but he made like, he was 15 for 29 on pull-up threes. Like you watch the threes he can make. And I know this guy can make threes. So it's like when you catch the ball, just take a three instead of like going into whatever crossover sequence you want to do, which is really cool. And I like that you can do it. I just want to see like him and Elmer are like so opposite where it's like, I like the big picture stuff. The in-between needs to come along and hopefully that happens. Where with Mahi, it's like, I love the stuff that you have that so few guys can offer. Can you just tailor it a little bit? I think that's my only concern, but I think he's a very good bet to do it, which is why I covered him.
I'm just like, defensively, like length to be in the passing lanes, can lose his man and help, solid recovery tools. Ball kind of sort of finds him on defense when he make plays. It's not like him really being like crazy aggressive. Needs to be a reliable off-ball defender. That's where I think that he needs the most amount of work. Not necessarily the on-ball stuff, but like he got kind of picked apart on the off-ball. And then he has a tendency to kind of lean into his physical tools while giving up position. So like those are some of the things that I noticed on defense. And like that's all the bad stuff that I have to say about him because like slippery in the lane, great first step, finishes with his offhand, moves well away from the ball, crafty finisher, nice touch on runners and floaters. Handle can get away from him a little bit, but he has a lot of sauce with the ball in his hand, fairly below the basket finisher. He sticks with his misses. He's patient with the ball, keeps his dribble alive, which I absolutely love. If you're going to create with the ball in your hand, keeping your dribble alive is like a huge thing. He makes nice skip passes, makes nice entry passes, really has some zip on the ball when he swings it, can do like some drive and kick and has really good vision. I look at the offense and his size and like, he'll be a senior, 22 years old coming into the draft. But like, there's a lot of stuff here, man, where I'm like, there's a lot that could go right for him this year. Like, I would not be surprised if he's a first round pick this year.
I think it's totally on the
even
table.
If it's late, early second round pick, I'll be fine with that too. Like, there's a lot to love about his game, dude.
Yeah, and so one of the things I do, and I mentioned this with Elmer, like I have a few like checklist things I do whenever I finish an eval on a player.
Yep.
And like for Elmer, one of the things I like is I do a question where it's like, does this player make life easier for their teammates, or do they require accommodation? And that's what I love about Elmer, was that it's like, this is very like make life easier player. The one I really like for Mahi is I do something called the 5SD test, where there's 5 S's of shooting, size, strength, skill, and savvy. And with Mahi, it's like, I just said I buy the shot. I know he has positional size. I know he's strong. I know he's skilled, and I think he's a really smart player, because you just talked about the passing, which you like, we cannot gloss over enough. Like, this man can make every pass on the basketball court while attacking the basket in this very unique way for a player with this level of size and strength. And it's like, all that's really missing is the defense. And like, it's easier to miss the defense. Yes, it's much easier to miss the defense when you're built like this than when you're built like, I don't know, like Joe Girard or whatever that guy from Syracuse was. You know what I mean? Where it's like, that guy, you know, he was pretty bulky and strong and smart and could shoot, but like, there was just no chance he was going to defend in the NBA. Mahi, like, physically, like physically has a chance to do that. So I think that's where like the real reason for optimism of like, if there is a mega breakout campaign, what is it? Or if a team takes him higher than like you might think now, it's because they're betting on like, well, just physically he's going to be able to do it once we make that a point of emphasis. So, so we're going to take our final break. We'll be back with some Tre Carroll and Mr. Dean, along with a big programming announcement. So stick with us. All right. So up next on the docket, we have Tre Carroll, who is at Florida Atlantic and will be at Xavier next season. Another big-bodied player. It's 6'8", 235 pounds. This past year, he averaged 12.2 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 1.2 turnovers, just under 1 steal and 1 block per game. Shot 52.2% from the field, 38.8% from deep, 75.5% from the free throw line. He was the winner of the Most Improved Player award
which is awesome
this year. That's sort of like what this is. This is just like a bet on a dude who's piecing it together with like an NBA body and NBA athleticism. He's super strong, super bouncy. He's pretty agile for his size. Like, it's nothing out of this world, but I think he can be really light on his feet, anticipate switches properly, really stifle dribble penetration, and can guard a number of positions. And then off ball, I love the rotations. I love his recognition around the basket. I love the hustle. I love his stay vertical at the rim. I love his timing when it's a dig or a stunt, and I love the polish to know, like, when can I gamble, when can I not. Effort on the glass on that side of the ball, like, just a high effort player defensively. And then offensively, it's a guy who made just under 39% of his threes on okay volume, good assist rate at 14.5 with a positive assist turnover ratio. A very decisive offensive player. Has the floor map when he catches it, either shoots it or moves it, and he really knows how to play without the ball. He cuts, he rebounds at a really high level, very physical when he's rolling or straight line driving. Is there a lot beyond like the big? No, like, he's got a really bad handle, like really bad. Like, there are times that he drives and he just loses the ball. Like, I do not have any faith in him like becoming an on-ball player at all. The question is just like, I don't know. And the other issue too is like, he's a high usage guy, but like, you look at his play types on Synergy and it's all like pick and roll man, transition, cutting, spot ups. It's like your usage was bolstered by being a play finisher in some ways, where it's like you get the usage check because it's like you cut and then a guy made the pass to you. So that helps for usage. Like, he really knows how to feast off the ball. He's really big. He's athletic. He plays hard. I think his feel is like solid.
Yep.
But he's also like going to turn 25 during his rookie season in the NBA. He was the last guy who redshirted, and I don't know if he can dribble. So it's like I love the innings eating potential here. Like, I think there's a world where maybe he's like Torrey Craig. Like, I think that's like an outcome for him where it's like, can he just like not screw up, play hard, and like do the minimum in that body, and that be a thing that a team wants. Like, I think that is possible. I don't know that that's like a bet I'm like sprinting, and it's
there's some good stuff here, right? Like, good touch, easy lift on his drives, can play big or on the wing. Like, you have him listed with your wings. I wouldn't be surprised if my guy, like, if everything hits right, that he plays like the 3 and the 4 at the next level. Like FAU being the team that they are, I mean, they had Elijah Barton playing the 3 while he was with their program. You know what I mean? So, like, it's kind of hard to assess positionally where someone's going to fit in at Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, and I think he's like
Xavier.
He's like a 4 in the NBA. Like, I use wing like super loosely for this, like 2 through 4. So I think I think he's probably like a 4 or a 3 next to like somebody else who's his size.
Yeah. I think that he has some ball handling stuff. Like, I feel comfortable like him doing some grab and go like he did at FAU. I think that he's got good quick release on his shot. Likes to finish with his left hand, like to a fault though. Like, I saw a number of possessions where I'm going to shoot with my left, even if that means that I'm going to get blocked, and I could have had a better finish with my right. While I do like that he is comfortable handling the ball, he doesn't have an advanced handle like you mentioned. Not the best at threading the needle as a passer either. Fluid as a driver, can screen, work handoffs, reject the handoff, and go. I saw a number of possessions where I'm like, okay, like reject the handoff and attack the basket. I like that. Moves with a purpose, almost like a bull in a china shop or like a bucking bronco, like a very like aggressive runner. Competes hard on the glass. He had an offensive rebound percentage of 8.4 and a defensive rebound percentage of 16.8. Works well out of the corner. Good sense of timing on his cuts. Tends to make expeditious passes is what I noticed. Very little record scratching. With his play style, though, like, he can work his way into the paint pretty easy, but oftentimes, like, he'll do it without a counter or like a backup plan. I like his strength. Again, it probably helps that he's going to be 25 years old at some point this coming season, but he is very strong, likes to play very physically. I love how proactive he is as a defender. He works very hard to get to his spots early and put his chest into his man. He only had 67 fouls committed to 74 fouls drawn. With the position that FAU had him play, I thought that was very well for him. Looked well defending in the block. Moves his feet, which helps him, cut off back downs and driving lanes. Tendency to be a little overly aggressive on his man's first move, though, which is something that I noticed pretty routinely, which can lead to blow-bys or fouls. Not overly quick, which I think realistically, like, if things cut right, like, he can probably defend like 3s and maybe some 2s and 4s depending on the matchup. Like, I wouldn't put him out there on like a Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland lined up, having him defending a 2, right? But I think that he can has some versatility defensively to kind of slide up and down the lineup on a case-by-case basis. So very fun, interesting player, Maxwell. Yeah. Not a guy that I had a lot of notes on coming into this conversation with you, so I went back and watched him. But just another fun player to kind of have on your list, because everything's kind of flat at a certain point on your board, so you might as well have a guy like Tre Carroll in there who has good size, can shoot, and do a lot of other things interestingly.
Yep. Yeah. To me, it's just it's not the sexiest way to put it, but like in my column, I was like, when you're building your final board at the end of the year, it's like, do I take older guy who might be a physically ready 3-and-D player, or do I take underwhelming big man B or uninspiring small guard A? It's just I don't know. Give me the guy who might be able to eat innings. I think I know that sounds harsh, but that's kind of what you're shooting for, but this is the ideal innings eater. It's like a guy who has all these tools. Wild swing on this next one, as far as this guy could be incredible. This guy might just be a really athletic guy who plays pro basketball for a long time, various places. Mr. Dean, who will be at College of Charleston, originally out of USC Upstate, 6'6", 200 pounds, 15.7 points per game, 5.5 boards, 1.4 assists to 2.3 turnovers, but 2.2 steals per game, 0.7 blocks per game. 57.2% from the field, 24.4% from 3, and 57.2% from the free throw line. Let's get the negative stuff out of the way. Okay. The two things that wings are asked to do offensively in the modern NBA, generally, if you're a role player, is move the ball and shoot threes. And Mr. Dean had a disgustingly negative turnover ratio. Yep. And he shot 24.4% from 3, and he was sub 60 at the line. That's bad. That is bad. It is what it is. I talked to Chris Harriman, who's an assistant at College of Charleston, for the article. He said he's like shooting quite a bit better this year. It's like we can take open threes for us. Like it's fine. Like it wasn't like an over the top sell, but he was like, yeah, like we think he'll be okay. From deep eventually. Everything else is awesome. Yes. He is an unbelievable athlete. He had 50 dunks last year, which is like not something you normally see from any freshmen that aren't 7 feet tall. Like that's a very rare thing. Despite the turnovers, the assist rate was still like 13.9. He has tunnel vision. Like that's why the turnovers are so bad. There are plays where it's like, I'm dribbling, I'm in traffic, I'm triple teamed, and I'm still shooting it or I'm getting stripped. But there are times where he makes like some really incredible passes. So I think that there's a chance that's not totally broken. Defensively, it's outrageous. Like, unreal combination of athleticism, speed, bounce, tenacity. Like, we'll pick guys up really early, pressure them really hard, dives for loose balls, good rebounder. One of only 7 players since 2008 to have a steal rate over 5 and a block rate over 3, and like one of the only freshmen to ever do that. Like, he is a special defender athlete. And I think that's the thing is like, at a certain point, like when you're doing under the radar guys, like you're always betting on something. And it's like, if this guy's just a passable shooter, we've got like a Derrick Jones Jr. situation where it's just like, he's athletic enough and can run enough and muck it up enough defensively that as long as the shooting is like not embarrassing, he will be an NBA player. Like, I think that's like the threshold. If he can just be like okay as a decision maker and not awful as a shooter, it could be fine.
I think that you hit the nail on the head in many of much of my notes. Like, great athlete, good frame to improve strength, transition threat, good footwork, intriguing pop is what I put in my notes. Nice length, decent handle, works his way into the paint, good touch at the paint too. So like for a guy who can't shoot, like his non-dunk stuff is actually pretty, just pretty to watch, you know, very, very good body control, incredible first step, going to be huge dunk guy. I think that he has some playmaking juice whenever he is like not on the run, like whenever he is like in the flow of the offense, like he has some decent vision. But whenever he's like pushing any sort of action, like as a ball handler, that's where I get a little bit scared with it. And I think that the hope is just to grow to a connective passer. Like that's, which can be kind of scary when you're like, look, dude, like we just want you to like make good passes. Like that's all we need you to do. Can you just be like a string it along type of a guy? But defensively, man, like slides his feet well, comes off of his man to make plays. Sometimes it works is what I have in my notes, where he'll jump passing lanes. He is a big risk taker on the defensive end because he believes in his, you know, natural gifts. I just think that he needs to learn more about, you know, defensive technique vice just instincts all of the time. You don't want to like completely neuter just like the instinctual stuff that he has, because I feel like sometimes it's just crazy to watch him like in his element, like see and react, because he can get there quicker than dude, he is like a special athlete, like not just for like a college guy, but like I think that he could be like, you put him in a gym with NBA players, like he would just like wow people, like anyone who shows up to watch him play. I just feel like this is like a very 2000s style of wing, like a Gerald Green type kind of project-y type player. And you hope that he develops like a 3-point shot like what we saw Gerald Green and like J.R. Smith do, because he can just like just leave your jaw on the floor watching his film. But the NBA has now been more about feel more so than ever, and I just think that we need the feel to kind of catch up with like the scary athleticism that we see from him. But him going to Charleston, I'm going to try my best to catch him live, because I want to see this dude run and jump in a gym in person and just like write notes about it and put it on the website, because I think it's just going to be incredible to watch.
For sure. Yeah, very interested to see him this coming season. Let's wrap it up on a semi-somber note, I suppose, as we get into programming stuff. So we kind of have to be vague about this still, which I hate. But for the time being, the Draft Sicko Show will be changing. So Stephen will still be here. Stephen will be holding down the fort full time. And I guess I'll let you kind of speak on what you have planned for the show coming up, and then I'll.
Yeah, it's hard to do vaguely.
Yeah, it stinks.
So none of this is for bad things.
Like, I
just want to make that abundantly clear. Like, if you've been listening to the feed, you know the Tylers, Corey and Albert, like Maxwell and I, we have been kind of trying to let y'all know as best we can with the information that we're allowed to give right now. Like, things are changing for No Ceilings, all for the better. And with that being said, like, there's going to be like some shuffling of the deck where you might see a face that you're used to seeing in one spot be somewhere else, you know, and we might just kind of keep that kind of going, if that makes sense, to where faces will be in different places at different times throughout the year, probably. Yep. But, you know, you can expect to see me continue to be here for Draft Sickos, repping that. And you will continue to get the great content that you guys are used to. So there's that aspect of it. And very soon you should be hearing more announcements. And once those announcements are made, then you can get more like direct, you know, kind of thoughts and opinions from us. But just for the time being, you know, Draft Sickos is going to be the long running show that you guys are all used to and love to hear. You know, we're going to still continue to do the stuff that you've been used to. It just might look a little bit different moving forward. But again, all great stuff. And we'll share more of that when the time comes. But Maxwell, man, like, love the show. Love being here with you, man. Great time. And, you know, look forward to when we can do this again.
For sure. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll collab on stuff, especially around the time that like Portsmouth gets here. I'm going to have to like invite myself on and we'll collab with that sort of stuff. So like
you have
gotta make
open
the trip.
Invitation.
So it's nothing bad. It is like Steven said, I think reshuffling of the deck is kind of the perfect way to put it where, man, this is like impossible to do without.
Dude, I want you so bad, but it's
so like, I can't really say anything. I'm not going anywhere. I will still be at No Ceilings. I will still be making podcast content on a different schedule. And I think that's the biggest reason that the deck is being reshuffled, is just for scheduling logistics on an individual level. For me personally, with
Maxwell and I still love each other.
Yeah. Yes. I still text Steven all the time about players. Like we've been texting each other constantly, even though we've known for like a couple months that something like this is probably going to be in the cards. It's no bad blood. The Sunday time slot was becoming tricky for me from a schedule standpoint. So like you just straight up won't see me being on podcasts that are recorded over the weekend anymore. As part of the schedule and just things I have going on behind the scenes. And then, there's going to be some reshuffling. So I will still be making content for the website. I will still be making public facing NBA draft content. I will still be doing work for No Ceilings in a podcasting capacity that will look different. That's all I can say for now. Draft Sickos will still be Draft Sickos. And I am very excited for what Steven has lined up for it. As we came to this, like we were both just immediately like, what about? And like we had the same exact thing in mind. So very, very excited for what the show will continue to be and for what No Ceilings is going to be. Again, wish we could say more. That's kind of just where it's at right now. So
we probably already said too much.
Yeah, so. I'm sure I did. So whatever.
Everyone knows what it is.
Enough. So
this
so
is
that'll
a shoot
be that.
In wrestling terms, to continue like one last wrestling reference. Like this was a little bit of a shoot.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where we're at with everything. But continue to stay subscribed. NoCeilingsNBA.com. All of our work is still going to be there. So that's it. That will be it for this week. We will see you all again very soon in various places. Draft Sickos will be back right here. So that will be that. Until next time, I will miss you all, Draft Sickos, but I'm not actually going anywhere. So I won't really miss you because I'll still be here. But that'll do it. We'll see you guys next time.
Much love, y'all.